You are watching Co-op for Two, broadcasting live from Champaign, Illinois, February 18th, 2024, Sunday afternoon. It's 3 p.m. and we are playing our Sunday afternoon play-by-mail game, which in this case happens to be Dear Holmes, the Yuletide Cipher. We're on letter 3. This will be the final letter of the mystery. And then there's one more letter next week, which will be the solution from Holmes. Let me check in with the chat before we catch up. Rob is here, is Sarah, Rocky, Teresa, Veggie Dog, KM Bose. It looks like Rocky has signed up for a subscription to Dear Holmes. That does sound like a nice gift. Okay, so let's catch up a little bit before we get started today. The channel finished playing the third box of Suspects, which is behind me there. Adele and Neville. It's for sure my favorite of the 3 boxes, and I quite liked it. The set. It's the first set that's really clicked for me. I will be posting a spoiler-free review of the box, much as I did for the first 2, in the coming days. So keep your eyes open for that if you're curious if this is finally the box that's worth purchasing. We have to decide what to play next. Perhaps we'll finally get to one of these bigger games. There's been some talk about playing John Keene's Razorhurst 2, Blood Alley. You might want to check out our playthroughs of the first of those maybe a year ago, and then my review of it, and it was also recommended in my top. Well, was it? I guess it wasn't recommended in my top print and play. Maybe it was. I can't remember if I focused only on Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective expansions or not. Anyway, the only reason we haven't played it yet is because John King just released it. And as I am learning, working on my case for high and low, it's impossible to get it just right on the first release. You need some early playtesters to come in and find some bugs. So I think the idea is that we'd wait for the first revision of that before we jumped into it. Let someone else take the bullets. But that's a good segue to talk about the fact that people have been trying my case for high and low over the last few days. The first playtester had took a bullet. And then we've been actually experimenting with a pretty significant change to the system over the last week, and it feels like it's on the right track. And so Jonathan Warner has played through it, found a couple issues, and I've just posted an updated version, which Rocky is in the middle of. And Rocky Helton also did major revisions of his case, hit the ground running for high and low. If you're interested in playing either of those, you can do so by dropping by the Discord for this channel. There's a link to that on the About page of the YouTube. You would play them both digitally using PDF files. They're very different cases, but you have to have some patience for playing a game that's still in a little bit of a rough shape. But if you're interested in high and low, if you don't know what high and low is, you can watch my design diaries that I've posted. It's a New York City noir translation of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective inspired game, but with some real differences. Okay, what else should we talk about? If you want to help decide what game we play next, you should stop by the Board Game Geek Guild forum for this channel. You'll also find a link to that on the About page. And you can help vote for what game we play next. Okay, shall we start here? Let's talk about the Yuletide Cipher and where we left things. As a recap of the case, we've got a bunch of thieves that are robbing toy stores. 8 thieves seen in the last break-in. And they're known to the police. They do this during the Christmas times. They rob Christmas items from stores and then they sell it on the street. It's a very low-level crime type thing. They caught one a couple days ago, and he mentioned that there's a plot, that he might know something about a plot against the Queen, which they thought is very far-fetched. It's exactly what you'd say to get yourself out of jail. Pretend to know something about something important. However, coincidentally, Scotland Yard intercepted some very suspicious-looking encrypted messages being sent to Boston. And that's where we got called into the case. The concern is there really a plot to attack the Queen? The messages were very odd. That's where we get the name, the Yuletide Cipher, from. And there were 2 ciphers in our first letter. This is what they look like. Here's one of them, which was sent on December 21st. Looked like it had a time, but we had already figured out this wasn't a time, but was this a key? We figured out from just a cursory glance that the Z's are probably sentence stops. The X's are probably word stops. That's the first message, encrypted message, or the second one here was the first one. We spent quite a bit of time trying to decipher these when we got our first letter. We made some observations about these pairs and specifically how odd the frequencies were. On our second letter, which was last week, we got more ciphers. By the time we got the second letter, there were some theories in the group about these messages. And the best theory came from, was it DJ Moneycut? That was, correct me if I'm wrong. But what he observed was we've got 1 of 12 and 2 of 12. We thought, okay, those are somehow significant, maybe to the well, the observation was that if you look at these letters, there are very few different letters here. In fact, we wrote them down when we first looked at this and noted how odd they were. And what I believe it was DJ Moneycut, someone noticed is that these letters are the letters from the word partridge. They're the 8 letters from the word partridge and no others. No letters other than letters that form partridge. However, and you know the song, the 12 Days of Christmas, is a partridge in a pear tree, and the second one was 2 turtle doves. That didn't quite work here. However, all these words almost fit into 2 turtle doves, but not quite. Okay. At the end of last week's session, I did some experimenting on camera, trying to think about what if you accept how odd it is that there are so few letters in each message, what could you do with that? And one of the things we came up with is, what if you took the phrase of the song, a partridge in a pear tree, and just map that to letters? So a partridge in a pear tree, and then you mapped each one down. Does not quite give you 26 letters, so I thought a natural thing would be to repeat. And I observed, well, the real problem with this is it's easy to encode. It's easy to encode. If you have any letter here you want to encode, you look up and you look at the letter. Unfortunately for decoding, it doesn't make quite, it's not so simple. If you have a P and you want to decode it, what was it originally? Well, a P could turn into an N, or this P turns into a B, this P turns into a W, and then I sort of wrote it off. And right as I signed off, I said, well, we'll work on it more. I went to the closing screen and I looked on the chat as I got up, and KM Bose said, hey, I just ran this and I got a message. I decoded something. So I came right back to the chair, canceled the break, and we worked on it a bit. And in fact, this is the scheme that's being used. So it encrypts uniquely, it decrypts. You need to use a little bit of guessing to figure out what words it will be. Turns out, after a little bit of research, that this was a scheme proposed by Edgar Allan Poe. And there's a paper about it. It's called a key phrase cipher. It's not used very often, probably because of this oddity of decoding being a pain in the butt. But a key phrase cipher. Okay, so in the Discord during the break, a couple people went and decoded our messages. So here they are. The first, so we intercepted 4. The first 2 came in our first letter. The second 2 came in our second letter. Notice they're out of order. We had some discussion about what that would mean. Does that mean we missed some? Or are they just randomly doing it? Not clear. The first message decodes to Queen moved, advise. The second message says no, next move Boxing Day to or Sandringham. Now, this would be, because each letter could go to 3 different possible decodings, some of these are ambiguous. This would be a word you would think you got wrong if we didn't have the Queen's route in our last letter. In our last letter, we're told, well, here's how the Queen travels. gives us the whole route by Royal Train, Liverpool Street Station, Sandringham House, Norfolk Estate, etc. So, second letter, Boxing Day to Sandringham. Third letter said, no need time anyway. So still opposed, maybe others. That was what I think DJ Moneycut said. Doc Johnson joined the channel and helped with two of these messages to really help. And he suggested, well, you know, this two-letter word, instead of saying so still opposed, this really could be AO is how this could decode. And why is that important? Because AO is our caught criminal, Alden O'Flaherty. So I think that's a pretty good guess, that Alden O'Flaherty may be opposed. And then similarly, I think this was DJ Moneycut who decoded most of this fourth and final letter, either a B, an H, F, M, or a P, all to Strand to Fleet. This is the Queen's route. So this could be saying Mall to Strand, or Paul Mall, or Hall, or anyway, to Strand to Fleet Street, then Cannon to Bishopsgate to an F or an L, and then a double J, S, or X. And Doc Johnson said, hey, look, I went to the map and started looking at these things and looking at the Queen's route again. And LSS, he thinks, probably means Liverpool Street Station, which makes a lot of sense because here is Liverpool Street Station. So I think the mystery of what this final three-letter thing is, which doesn't seem to be a word, is probably LSS. Mall to Strand to Fleet, Cannon to Bishopsgate to LSS. And that's what we're looking at here. Bishopsgate, Liverpool Street Station, and some of these, there's the mall. Some of these, if we got our map out, we might be able to see the exact route. So what have we got? We've got these messages going to Boston sure look like they're trying to assassinate the Queen, trying to attack the Queen, and trying to coordinate it, and they're passing route information. Now, why they have to pass route information to Boston, I don't know. But there's our messages, and it was KMBOs that right at the end, as we were closing yesterday, came up with, did the actual decoding that otherwise we weren't even gonna do it. Okay. Now, so there's our cipher, and now we know how to decode all the messages. Now, in our second message, we intercepted people talking, and we got this conversation where our guy, Tig, who's sending the messages, runs into a partner who calls him Doyle, so we know his first name. He says, everything goes swell. Then he says, Kennedy's involving us in something that's ... The other one seems stunned. Something that's what? Not worth our time, first of all. Very unclear what that means. So we don't know. We don't really understand this conversation. We do know now that we've got a cast of characters which looks like this. We've got our guy that was arrested, the person they're sending telegrams to, Tig Doyle, who's the messenger sending these telegrams, Kennedy, who we've just heard about, but we don't know who it is, and then this bald man who's talking and meeting with Tig. And the biggest mystery we really have that we are struggling with here is, why on earth are these toy store robbers also writing secret codes in a fancy cipher, tracking down the Queen's route? It's very confusing. What possible reason could a group be doing both of those things. Either you're high quality assassins with information about the Queen's route and you know how to write ciphers, or you're local toy store robbers. So very strange. Now, one theory I was thinking is we think somehow they must have some inside person who's getting them the Queen's route information, because it's a secret, a kept state secret. So one possibility is, did this guy purposely get caught in order to go to jail where he can make contact with his informant? And we're told in this last letter something interesting, or a total red herring, but we're told that we can see that he's whistling from his jail cell to someone. And it seems pretty clear he's communicating to someone who's trying to stop by at 3 a.m. and he gets scared off. So it feels like, and they're saying he's annoying people with his whistling, it feels like he's communicating. So the question is there a reason why he's communicating with someone? And I noticed this part, that, look at this. O'Flaherty is being held. Someone's working outside trying to listen to him at 3 a.m. Then he says, he's being held underneath Bow Street Magistrates Court, as the normal prison cells are full of people who have overindulged. So I thought, is it possible that there's something significant about where he's being held, that he got himself captured on purpose to get himself so he could talk to someone to get information? But one problem with that theory then is, if he has purposely got himself caught to get himself positioned, and he's more clever than we think, why on earth would he tell them that he knows about a plot to attack the Queen? That doesn't really make sense. The fact that he's told them there's a plot to attack the Queen seems to go against the idea that he's done some very clever thing to get the information. It just occurred to me another possible theory that would have him purposely get caught. So I said, you wouldn't purposely get caught if you're trying to attack the Queen and then tell the people, hey, I know about a plot to attack the Queen. Rocky Helton says, I think he's getting caught so he'd have an alibi. I don't buy that. But what if they're trying to break someone out of prison and the attack on the Queen is like a diversion or something? We have considered the possibility that, remember, these telegrams start after he gets arrested. So it's possible they're fabricating this just to get the police to offer him some deal, but he doesn't seem to want to talk to the police anymore or make a deal. So that argues against that. But you could try to get the police riled up about some attack as a diversion. Okay, but we've got a new letter today, and it's going to be the final letter, so it's surely going to break things wide open. All right, anything the group wants to chat about before we open our next letter? Any theories people want to go through? Is there anything I missed in my recap? YouTube says 16 viewers currently, 4 likes. As a reminder, I've purchased all the games we play on this channel myself, including the subscription to Dear Holmes. If you do like this content, I hope you'll subscribe. Give this video a thumbs up. I do love these play-by-mail games, so much so that I'm really seriously thinking about taking high and low in a play-by-mail direction and trying to build the infrastructure to serve up cases, high and low cases in a play-by-mail system. Okay, no one has any other theories, so we're going to open this letter here. Nothing else people want to talk about, then we're going to open up our letter. All right. 3 sheets of double-sided paper, including a new cipher. Here we go. December 24, 1900. Dear Mr. Holmes, I thank you for the information regarding O'Malley. We are relieved as well to learn that you are making headway on what you have so aptly dubbed the Yuletide Cipher. If your American contact's intelligence is reliable, then I agree with your assessment. When Mr. Doyle was overheard stating that Kennedy was involving their gang in something questionable, he was referring to something at the heart of which lies Ronan O'Malley. What that might be, however, I was hoping you would know. Returning to the subject of the cipher, if it is as you say, then the numbers such as 312 and 812 are not referring to a time at all. Then we have been neglecting to analyze a significant part of these capricious telegrams. I also agree with your assertion. It is remarkable that each of these hours is composed of a number followed by .12. Indeed, the notion of the 12th night comes to mind, but I am at a loss beyond that. Perhaps the messages are meant to be reviewed in a particular order. I have thought to myself, or they could form part of a greater plan, only to be understood with 12 total telegrams in hand, of which we now theoretically possess the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, and 8th. One of these is new to us, maybe in this letter. But the more I ponder the question, the more I find myself returning to my original belief that these are indications of time. Although I trust in your observations, Mr. Holmes, I wonder if the telegram's author is simply using a unique notation for the hour based on the number 12. You will also understand that in any of these cases, we still lack something or things crucial to deciphering these messages. Thus, I intend to take as many precautionary measures as I can devise until we have ascertained the truth. Presently, Constable Langley is collecting data on any notable gatherings in London planned for the 5th of January. Should the 12th night, so to speak, verily relate to the telegrams? Aside from this, I am writing to you early in the day because I have a brief bit of new knowledge to share, though it pales in comparison to the guidance you have provided. The information is the product of Miss Bayhard, Constable Langley, and Inspector Antonsley's continued labor and can be split into 2 parts. The first relates to Bayhard's Reina theory, while the second is largely related to a new telegram we have intercepted and an attempt to communicate with Tig Doyle, the so-called messenger. The Reina theory was this telegraphist's theory that there is a Spanish band called Reina that's coming into town, and that Reina is Spanish for queen, something like that. Prior to today, Miss Bayhard had informed us of an imminent gathering that was linked to the Reina Ensemble's upcoming performance on December the 26th. The minor congregation took place earlier this morning near Pall Mall, across from the site of the eventual musical assembly. Constable Langley agreed to surveil the event should anything of note transpire, and though he reports nothing but a distribution of advertisements for Raina, which preceded an unnerving communal rendition of songs written by the group, he did spot one odd spectator. According to Langley's report, there were roughly 30 or 40 participants gathered before two men and a woman, who were claiming to be official representatives of Raina. Among those participants, in the crowd of people singing, was one of the men seen tossing toys into the back of the carriage at Follies. The man did not appear to share any connection to the official representatives of the Raina ensemble, nor did he appear to be acting ominously. Indeed, Constable Langley followed him as he left the event and determined that, in light of his actions today, and the fact it could compromise our investigation, a confrontation did not seem wise. The relevant portion of Langley's complete statement follows. The man I recognized from Follies attended alone, but was entirely engrossed. Seemed sincerely delighted to receive a leaflet, supposedly signed by the group, though I surmise this is a lie. I received 4 of them merely on asking, and the signatures all varied, wildly I will say, across them. The man took several for himself, then went on to chat with other spectators until the singing started. I was able to float past him a number of times and overheard segments of his conversations, all of which were astoundingly mundane. I dare say the man is more a fanatic of Raina than he is a thief, not to excuse his penchant for crime. When the singing began, I became certain he was not attending the gathering under a false pretense, for he sang proudly and with unmatched knowledge of every lyric, every note. We will continue to monitor preparations for the group's upcoming concert and have sent word to Raina's representatives requesting a brief meeting so that we may apprise them of our concerns. In addition to this, I was able to collaborate with Inspector Antonsley and Miss Behard this morning, as you suggested. As a result, we have not only intercepted a new telegram, but have also managed to leave Mr. Doyle, its messenger, with the sly missive you conceived. Following your specifications, Inspector Antonsley, donning a thick gray wig and cane, assumed his post near the Trafalgar Square telegraph office, close to 6 today. Before he did so, I arranged for the day's staff inside to be left with special instructions from Scotland Yard. Each person responsible for accepting telegrams was introduced to Miss Behard, who, disguised in a tall braided wig and simple green dress, was to supervise their performance for the day. Behard, per your directives, assumed a post behind the seated clerks, armed with a journal and a minuscule piece of paper containing your simple note. Cambo said, we should note some messages will be more difficult to decode using certain key phrases due to how many plausible combinations exist for every word. That's a good point. So it might not make sense to use the phrases in strict musical order. Well, we discussed the fact that they could be just choosing randomly, or as you say, maybe some are easier than others. That's a good point. Okay, so here's the simple note that Holmes came up with. Your insights on O'Flaherty crucial. Meet 9 p.m. tonight. Deposit box outside. Just us, no police, no associates. Cooperation and discretion will benefit your friend in court. Joffrey. Okay, so Holmes has come up with this to give to Tig when Tig comes, I guess. Thankfully, she only had to keep watch of the crowds for a short time as Mr. Doyle entered the office by 8 in the morning. Behard waited for him to approach somebody and attempt to dispatch his telegram, and once he did so, she set forth with your plan. She swiftly interrupted the clerk in question, asked them to stand behind her, and note proper customer etiquette. Then she graciously accepted the telegram from Doyle and handed him the note from Geoffrey as if it were a receipt. As Doyle exited, Inspector Antonsley, playing the part of his disguise, dropped his cane, and called for the messenger to help him retrieve it. Doyle obliged, as you predicted, and Antinsley thanked him profusely and waved him off, but only after introducing himself as Geoffrey. I now sit and wait for this potential meeting and its results while I review this latest telegram with your counsel in mind. Okay, so we know how to decode this now, the fifth day of Christmas song, but let's see. Let's see what he's got here. The number below this telegram's date is unique from that of the other telegrams while still ending in a 12. So in this light, my theory regarding a 12-part message or plot does seem to carry some conviction. It will also come as no surprise that the partial key you provided for the first telegram fails to produce a clear message when applied to this or any other telegrams. I am still struggling to find meaning in the first one, I confess, though I have strung together some series of letters with success. If I have understood you correctly, then you are at least certain that with regard to the first telegram, one should substitute letters with these parameters in mind. Instances of A can be either A, C, M, P, V, or X. So they're giving us some clues how to decode it under the guise of Holmes telling them. And this is not going to be for this, but this is going to be for the first night of Christmas, Partridge. So this is if you didn't know how to decipher this, you could study this with the first cipher and maybe it would make sense to you. This greatly facilitates our efforts. Still, there's much work to be completed before we can produce a clear message. If and when I am able to fully decipher the first intercepted telegram, I will send word and begin applying your methods to the more recent messages anew. It is my hope that one of us succeeds in making further progress on the matter before yet another cryptic telegram rears its head. Until then, I will continue to try and crack this nut with my colleagues. Awaiting your word, G will strike. Okay, so there's another page for us, but let's just do this live on the channel now that we know. So, fifth day of Christmas is golden rings, 5 golden rings. So, what we think we've got is 5 golden rings. And then, whoops, golden rings with an S. Then 4 calling birds. We don't need to go past calling. 5 golden rings, 4 calling. Okay, so if we take our message here, LEOCR, copying this out, OCR, not period, word break. UGBGEL. Let's just do this first one. Okay, so just so you know how to do it, we've got an L. So when you were encoding it, you went and then you mapped one letter to an L. Well, okay, so L could be a G or a V or a W. A G, V, or W. And E could be a D or an I. Okay. And O is either an F or a Q. A C has to be a T. And R could be a K or an S. A U is got to be an R. Only one U. G is an E or an N or a Z. So what have we got? GIFT. So GIFT, gifts. Then we've got a word break. And our next word, okay, V could be a C. Has to be a C. G is our E and Z. E is our D or an I. L is our G, V, W. So it's going to be RECEIV. Gifts received, surely, is what we're going to get for our things. Okay, so you see how to decode it now. You see the process. CED, and there's our period. And then our next sentence is VFUR, word break, ISFEGE, then we have a period. Okay, now, has anyone finished decoding it, or do I have to keep going here? I guess I have to keep going. Okay, so V we know goes to a C from our previous. We've never seen an F, so F goes to A or P. Okay, U we got before, that was an R. R we got before, that was K or an S. I we've never seen, could be a B, could be an L, could be an X. S we've never seen, could be an O. F we've seen, that's an A or a P. E we've seen, that's a D or an I. G we've seen, that's E, N, Z. E is D or I. Okay, so what is this going to say? Cars. BO L load LOAD, cars loaded. Is this going to be bomb? Gifts received, cars loaded. Seems promising. Our next sentence. Okay, next sentence is LEII, word break, UGFSUG, word break, IN, word break. Okay. L we said goes to GW, GVW, is that right? L goes to GVW, yes, okay. E goes to D or an I goes to B, L or an X, B, L or X. U goes to an R, G goes to an E, an N or a Z. F goes to an A or a P. S goes to an O. U goes to an R. T goes to an E, N, or Z. I goes to a B, L, or an X. N we've never seen before. Either a J, an M, or a Y. Okay, well, this looks like will. Cars loaded, will report. Report, did I do something wrong? Because it sure looks like report. G, can't go to a T. Is that a C instead of a G? Did I transcribe that wrong? U, G, F, S, U. That must be a C that I transcribed wrong. Okay, so then that's a T. Okay, W, I, L, L. Word break. R, E, P, O, R, T. Will report. Will report. U, C, I, N. B, L, X, J, M, Y. Well, I don't know what that word is. It's someone's name. E, M, B, by. Oh, by. B, Y. Will report by. Okay, last bit. I, S, I. Word break. E, F, N. Sentence break. Okay, so I is B, L, X. S is an O, B, L, X. This goes, an E goes to a D or an I. F goes to an A or a P. N goes to J, M, or Y. Will report by I, S, I, B, L, X. Well, this looks like this is going to be day, D-A-Y, by Boxing Day, B-O-X. Boxing Day. Okay. So we have decoded it live on the channel. Let's read our message. Cars loaded. Gifts received. Will report by Boxing Day. All right. Let's just write that down. Cars received. Cars received. VFUR. No, that wasn't first. LE. LE. Gifts received. Let me just make sure I did that right because I just assumed. VFUR. Yeah, that's a word. Okay. So gifts received. Cars loaded. Will report by Boxing Day. Boxing Day is the day after Christmas. December 26th. Okay. Now, what do we make of that? Gifts received, cars loaded, will report by Boxing Day. Cambo says the line for calling birds was first noted in 1900. It should be collie birds. All right. It's okay. Gifts received. Cars loaded. So cars loaded could mean bombs, or it could mean it has nothing to do with the Queen. But all the previous messages are about the Queen. So this sounds like maybe they've put bombs in the cars. Possibly. Let's see what the chat thinks. Rocky says, I still think there's no foul play. It seems there's a Robin Hood situation for Christmas toys, loading train cars with the stolen toys. Are they collecting gifts by stealing them, then using them as cover to distribute Christmas gifts to somewhere close to the Queen so they can plant a bomb there? That's an interesting idea. Did our previous letter tell us that she gives out gifts? It definitely told us that she hangs out to have food, to eat a simple box lunch with them. But were we told that she gives out toys? Because that would be interesting if they put bombs with those toys. Let's just look at this. We still have one more letter to read in this letter, and one more page. It's custom for her to spend the first day of Christmas at her home to receive guests. And they cook her simple deal so that the servants can go. She will be there by Boxing Day to attend church services, carry out her customary duties. She presents charitable boxes to the needy. So is that it? That the charitable boxes are boxes of toys? And that they're doing something with them? Let's read our next letter. Chat says, after collecting gifts by stealing them, then using them as cover to distribute Christmas gifts somewhere close to the Queen, they put the toys in the train that they've stolen after they've done something with them, either put bombs in them, maybe they're seeding them with like smallpox. To create a public relations problem, or they're bombs. Okay, well, looks like the group thinks it's bombs. How come there are no return messages from Boston? It may just be that they don't get intercepted, like a different office may be getting those messages and we may not be getting them. All right, let's read this next letter. Paddington Station, telegrams, 24 December. Dear Mr. Holmes, I thank you for the information regarding O'Malley. We are relieved as well to learn that you are making headway on what you have so aptly dubbed the Yuletide Cipher. If your American contact's intelligence is reliable... Wait, did we already read this? Yes, we read that one. Here's the one we didn't read. Dear Mr. Holmes, 25 December. Okay, here we go. This is the last letter we're getting, 25th of December. I'm writing to you on this first day of Christmas, alas, with tidings both troublesome and merry. Although O'Flaherty remains incarcerated, there was an overnight attempt to free him from our custody. The ordeal has left us all the more puzzled after a strange occurrence yesterday concerning Her Majesty's journey to Sandringham. By contrast, you will be pleased to learn that Inspector Antonsley's rendezvous with Doyle has succeeded. I will detail all of this in sequence. As stated, O'Flaherty's attempted escape was unusual, the reason for which will become clear on learning how, or rather by whom, it was foiled. According to Constable Langley, who was posted at Bow Street, not a creature was stirring until moments after 2 in the morning, when a loud noise, the sound of metal being struck, was heard, followed by hushed, spirited chatter. Before you could sort out the source of the commotion, the hushed chatter turned into calls for guard. Langley reports, the shouts came from O'Flaherty, and when I arrived at his cell, which is in a solitary part of the prison, he was cowering in the corner furthest from the cell's window. O'Flaherty claimed somebody was outside, though I could see nobody at the time. The other guards circled the perimeter outside and sighted nobody. We have transferred O'Flaherty to a different cell as a precaution. But when questioned, O'Flaherty is now gracing us with either silence or a cursed rendition of the 12 Days of Christmas. We're skeptical, however. 2 of the bars guarding his former cell's window were indeed distorted, as if they had been pried apart. We'll remain vigilant. There, too, was an incident involving the Queen. As I noted, and though she is unharmed, we cannot help but wonder if it might relate to the plot which O'Flaherty first referenced, if not somehow to the events described above. Her Majesty was referenced to the events described above. Her Majesty was meant to depart London yesterday from Liverpool Street Station by means of royal train, yet due to several miscommunications, her holiday itinerary has been almost entirely altered. As the Queen's staff prepared for her carriage to Liverpool Street, they discovered that her regular coachman, Martlet, and the man's usual replacement, Tabor, were both nowhere to be found. This rapidly became the least of their concerns, as they received word that the royal train would be unable to travel that day, as sudden complications requiring immediately repair had arisen. Her Majesty will now be spending the holidays in Buckingham, to her chagrin, though as custom dictates, I'm reporting this to you because of what we have uncovered in our subsequent review of these unexpected deviations. It appears that all of the parties involved, that is, Tabor, Martlet, and the gentleman responsible for royal locomotive maintenance, were contacted before yesterday afternoon. We have not located Tabor or Martlet, but upon visiting their homes, we discovered that they each received identical typed notes yesterday morning. The notes were typed on government letterhead and stated that there had been a change of plans and that they were to visit an address at St. James at Her Majesty's behest. As for the repairman, Albert Scarbo, who sent word of the supposed train complications, he did not receive a note. Instead, he was visited, he says, by an impeccably dressed, somewhat corpulent man who claimed to be from the Foreign Office. The man did not introduce himself by name, but convinced Mr. Scarbo that he had, prior to his arrival and on behalf of the master of the horse, detected an issue within the royal train. He then sent off Mr. Scarbo to alert those at Buckingham Palace of the issue, while he continued repairs until his return. The man was unsurprisingly gone when Mr. Scarbo returned, and we have yet to uncover anything unusual within the vehicle. Nevertheless, we will forego use of the royal train until we have deemed it unquestionably safe. And in hopes of locating Tabor and Martlet, I intend to call on the address to which they were summoned by note. It belongs to a social club once I have dispatched this letter. In the interim, you may be able to make use of what we have gathered from Inspector Antonsley's exchange with Tige Doyle. I was thrilled to learn that Doyle accepted our invitation to speak and indeed met Antonsley, or rather Geoffrey, at Trafalgar Square yesterday evening. In the brief moments they spoke, he shared several. I did not get enough sleep last night. In the brief moments they spoke, he shared several telling facts. Kennedy is a man named Darragh Kennedy. Doyle claims the man is one of the few men in charge of the gang associated with O'Flaherty, the telegrams, and the theft at Follies. 2. According to Doyle, Kennedy and O'Flaherty were true comrades until this year. They have been at odds for months now. 3. The reason for the former fact is unknown to Doyle, but related to Kennedy's new chums, with whom Kennedy became acquainted on a recent American excursion. Doyle notes that these acquaintances are interested in more than fencing toys. The incident at Follies has further exacerbated this conflict, as the boys are saying O'Flaherty is soft and let himself get caught. Doyle refuted this, saying he must have slipped, though Antonsley sensed hesitation in his voice at the time. Besides this, the inspector has stated, Doyle appeared to be sincere. He asked more than once how O'Flaherty was faring, and hoping it would curry favor, repeatedly mentioned the lack of violence involved in his crimes. He was almost eager, though reticent, to share anything that might help his associate, and seemed conflicted about the information he relayed. He does not seem to be devoted to the man Kennedy. Still, he did not reveal anything regarding the telegrams. Claims, albeit nervously, no knowledge of the messages or their purpose. Mr. Holmes, I hope you can cast some light on this most unfortunate matter before we are met with any additional surprises. All right, well, I think we've got a picture here that we've got this robbery gang, which is Tige and O'Flaherty. And there's a third man, Kennedy, who might be higher up. And Kennedy has decided to throw his lot in with the Boston group that are trying to kill the Queen, assassinate the Queen. And O'Flaherty doesn't want to really be involved in this. Maybe he's scared to say anything, though. Maybe he did get himself caught and mentioned it because he doesn't want to be freed. He doesn't want to be pressured into helping this gang do their attack. And I guess they were trying to break him out and he didn't want to go out. So I think that's what we've got there. But he doesn't want to go to the police and tell them because that would get him killed as a rat. So then but there's a guess that this is Mycroft. I happen to be wearing my shirt from Mycroft's club, the Diogenes Club. An impeccably dressed, somewhat corpulent man who claimed to be from the Foreign Office. It does kind of sound like Mycroft, but other than that, it sounded like these were all an attempt to get rid of these people so they would have access to the train. So it sounds like this is a very organized plan. They want access to the train so that they can plant the toys on it. So they've cooked up a scheme to get the normal people away from the train for one day while they can access it. Gifts received, cars loaded. I'm a little confused about how where is our letter? 12:24. Did we read these out of order? Is that what happened? I'm trying to think. Was this message sent? Was this message sent after this? When did this happen? On the 25th of December, there was an incident involving the Queen. Yesterday, due to several miscommunications, it's been altered. Okay, so this letter is being written on the 25th, but it seems to describe an incident with the train on the 24th. And the 24th is when this happened. So I think what we're getting here is this is after this. So they've organized a diversion for the workers who are normally on the train. And then while they're all distracted, our people have accessed it, have loaded up the train cars with the bombs, I guess, we think. Something terrible, but probably bombs. And then now the government knows that something was done with the trains, but they don't know what. And presumably they're going to check the trains, but maybe not the toys. That won't occur to them. It's not that they didn't want her on the train. They just needed access to the train. So they've just delayed her plans for one day. They just needed these people away from the train so they could get to the train and load it with their toys. Now that that's happened, she's going to resume her plans on the next day and get bombed and blown up. I think that's it. I thought she's not going on the train now. Is that true? I think they just delayed her plan, but let's see. Incident revolving the Queen. She's unharmed. She was meant to depart London yesterday, yet due to several miscommunications, their holiday itinerary has been almost entirely altered. But we're not told how it's going to be altered. I think it's just good. Her Majesty will now be spending the holidays in Buckingham. So her plans are changed, but she is going to have to get on the train at some point. I think that still has to be part of the plan. Rob says it doesn't really matter if she takes the train, just as long as she distributes the gifts. As long as she's there when the gifts arrive to hand them out, which is part of the tradition, we're told. So look, Her Majesty will spend Boxing Day presenting charitable boxes as tradition dictates. So I guess what Rob is saying in the chat is it doesn't really matter how she gets there. Maybe, in fact, that's part of their plan. Like, okay, so maybe the government will be like, we can't risk putting her on this train, but the plan doesn't involve she doesn't actually have to be on that train as long as she meets up with the train and the toys. Rocky says it still doesn't make sense to me that they would take toys if you were putting bombs in the packages. I think they're packages of toys. They're bombs of toys. Cambo says, we know Holmes is working on this puzzle in parallel to us. I really think this was either Mycroft or Holmes undercover, making certain the train was unavailable. It does kind of sound like that was a description of Mycroft. Not the one who sent them the letters to get rid of the most of them, just the one that visited this one. Right? Not the person, not the fake letters that went to these people, but it may have been the repairman who was visited by Mycroft from the Foreign Office, told him to alert Buckingham. Well, yeah, I think that's probably a good bet, but it doesn't matter to us. All right, I think we understand this case, but I like your observation. I think it does seem a little too much of a coincidence. It does sound like Mycroft, but the basic outlines of our theory are fairly complete now, right? They are planning to kill her with bombs. O'Flaherty doesn't want to be involved in it. He got himself arrested and wants to stay in jail. And he wasn't communicating with his whistling, but the person who was walking around outside was trying to get at him, maybe get him out, and he doesn't want to get out. And there are bombs on that train, right? They have succeeded. Gifts received, in other words, the bombs, they got the bombs from their friends to put in the toys they've stolen. They've loaded them in. They've put the bombs in the toys. Now they've loaded them into the train, and they're going to report how it goes on Boxing Day when the Queen meets up with these toys and train to give them out. DJ Moneycut says, hey, let's review the questions in the first letter. That's a very good idea. Remember that Dear Holmes now tries to give you questions with the first letter. Here they are. What messages, if any, are these telegrams concealing? Okay, well, we've decoded all the messages, so we're fine. We've solved that one. Who is responsible for the telegrams, and are they all being dispatched by the same person? Well, they're all being dispatched by this guy, Teague, Doyle Teague, but it doesn't seem like he may not even know what they say, right? He's got a boss, Kennedy. In fact, I guess if we looked at that conversation, it might tell us how much he knows. This guy says, "Does everything go swell?" And he says, Kennedy's involving us in something that's ... Something that's what? Wow, it's not worth our time, first of all. So I don't know exactly what that means. I'm not sure how much this Doyle Teague knows what he's doing. Does the Queen's safety truly hang in the balance? Yes. Is there any way for us to know whether Teague knows what these messages are? I guess it was talked about a little in our current letter, right? Because Holmes set up a fake meeting with them, and it's all here. Kennedy is a man named Derek Kennedy. Doyle claims the man is one of the few men in charge, so he's the guy who's connected to the Boston group. Kennedy, he's our ringleader here. Kennedy and O'Flaherty were true comrades until this year when they broke up because O'Flaherty didn't want to be involved in this bombing, didn't want to promote the gang to doing serious work. And this guy did. So here's our ringleader. He doesn't know exactly why they fell out. All he knows is that they're interested in more than toys. He doesn't seem to know what they got upset about, so I'm not sure he knows anything about the details. He's not involved in violence. So I think he doesn't even know. Okay. I think we are done. An hour and 10 minutes. we could discuss it more, but it feels to me like we've basically got it, and we can save any future discussion before we read the final letter next week. So chew on everything we've read. If you've got some unresolved issues you want to talk about before we read the solution from Holmes, we can talk about it. But I guess it's safe to say we're going to put in a send an express telegram to tell the Queen, Boxing Day plans are going to have to change. It's not safe. It's not safe. Okay. I'll see you guys maybe sometime this week for an unannounced game, last minute game. If you want to help decide what game that will be, stop by the Board Game Geek Guild for this channel. Link on the About page. Help decide which of the new games to play. A new Deadbolt Mystery Society box just arrived, but I think maybe we'll play something different. Okay, I'll see you next time.